Hey there, welcome to a new video series which I'm recording. This is focused on the books that I'm reading, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 books on spirituality which have been really instrumental in my journey. And the way that I'm thinking of doing this is to kind of start out by using a 4-box framework or approach. And the intent of this is to kind of just use my consulting skills and think of what's a way of judging whether a book is good or not, and then helping you guys understand why you should be choosing to read these or not. So the first box is essentially focused on when you should read this. So this is more about what's the right time in your particular life when you should read it. So there's no specific time for most books, but sometimes there's specific books that if you read at a certain stage in your life, you appreciate them a lot more. So as an example, if you want to read The Catcher in the Rye, there's nothing wrong with reading it at 50s or in your 60s, but if you read it when you're a teenager, it feels a lot more impactful as compared to reading it much later in your life. Likewise, if you want to read a spiritual book, it makes more sense to read it at that point in time when you've had a certain level of maturity, you understand how the world works, and probably if you read it way ahead of time, you might not be able to appreciate it as much as when you know that particular time is right. And this is my understanding based on what at the point in time that I read it and how I feel it might be able to help you. The next one is why you should read this book. So this is very important because it's kind of like what's really great about this book and why did I read it and what I enjoyed about it and why I'm recommending it to you. But then at the same time, I think there's a third box, which is why not to read this book. So that not every book is great, right? There will be certain areas which are really impactful and certain areas which are not. So this is focused more on why you should avoid them. And then the last one is the TLDR. So a lot of folks watch this video at the start, don't watch it till the end. So if you just want to kind of have that short one-word answer, you can kind of just look at this box. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, or if you're new to the channel, please do. It helps me to continue making new content. So let's start with the first book. And before I kind of start out with talking about those 4 boxes, just a quick caveat. A lot of these are books, actually all of them are books by Rusbe Barucha. He's he used to be a journalist, went into being very spiritual, so he became kind of like very focused on his spiritual journey. So he channels Shirdi Sai Baba. So a lot of the books that are going to be here are also about Sai Baba. If you don't know who he is, the best way to kind of understand him is just to go through the Wikipedia page. He was one of those saints who did not preach for a specific religion. He was religion agnostic. He was focused more on how to make people better human beings and help them on their spiritual journeys. He also happens to be one of those saints who was very much present in the modern world. So if you look at religion in general, Sikhism is probably the newest religion that the world has seen, and then Sai Baba was actually very much living up till the early 1900s. So you actually have him very much in the world we see today, whereas all the other religions are based and they're like centuries old. So some of us may not be able to necessarily relate to that. So just that caveat here. And just starting out with the first book, that's essentially called Sai Baba, the Messiah of Oneness. Why to read it? I think it's great if you have an interest in spirituality. It's very focused on Sai Baba's teachings, but it's also very good in the sense that it acts as a good introduction to him. Why should you read it? Because it's a great introduction to Sai Baba. So if you're not very familiar with him, you're interested in spirituality, he's one of the great spiritual masters, it makes sense to read about him. Why not? Because it's purely geared towards him, so you just get a singular perspective. So as an example, you will get a lot of how he thought about things, but not necessarily how other religious texts or other spiritual masters think about spirituality. And then the last one is Too Long Didn't Read. So read if you're interested in getting to know about Sai Baba, if you're just starting on your journey, and if you want to start very light on Rusbe's books. This book also borrows very heavily from the Sai Satcharitra, which is essentially the quintessential book on Sai Baba. So you get a lot of learnings from that as well. It's extremely dumbed down. It's got limited commentary from Rusbe on Sai Baba, which is also a great thing because it's purely fact, which has been tracked. So that's the good things about this particular book. Let's go to the next one. So 4, it's The Fakir. So The Fakir is actually a series of 3 books. The first one is called The Fakir. It has a really cool byline. So it's called, the one who makes the thunder roar also hears a butterfly sigh. Really like this book. So when should you read it? I think it's perfect irrespective of the time. So you could be in your teens, you could be in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And when you have that moment of crisis where you're thinking about a lot of quintessential questions around life, what's happening, or you are faced with certain issues, it could be a wealth issue, it could be, losing a loved one, it could be something around not making enough money, not getting that promotion at work. It could be not having the best relationships with your friends or your family. It helps you answer a lot of those questions. Why should you read it? Because essentially it balances fiction and non-fiction, and it tells it in a very compelling way. It's kind of like a speed read, which kind of you can go through very quickly. I think the challenge with it is that it is one of his earlier books. It was not published by one of the better publishing houses. So what you end up with is not getting the best editing that's possible. So if you are a stickler for, or you're a grammar Nazi, probably not the best book to read. Too Long Didn't Read. Read for the thrills, but be ready for bad editing. Also, I think the first book is the best. The sequels don't do as much justice to the original work. But if you find the first one really good, you can always go ahead and read it. I've read all 3. I personally like the first one the best, and I found that to be the most impactful when I was going through this. There's also a bit of surreal elements which are built into this, so probably won't recommend that if you're a stickler for the facts. Let's go to the third one. So the third one is called Ice with Very Unusual Spirits. Again, borrows a lot from the learnings of Shri Sai Baba, but then also has elements which are around sage Tiruvalluvar, who's a sage from the southern part of India, and Rusbe kind of marries the learnings of both of these together. So one thread which is common to a lot of the books that Rusbe has written is that a lot of the main characters kind of are able to either interact with Sai Baba directly, or they have some kind of ability to channel him, or they know someone who's able to channel him, and so they have a direct connection or conversation with Sai Baba. The other thing that I really liked about Ice with Very Unusual Spirits is kind of like he's setting up his own metaverse. So he borrows elements from his other books where he tries to bring these characters together, which is a great thing. When should you read this? You should read this when you aren't feeling very grateful about the things that you have in life, or you feel like I'm not doing as well as I would like to, or my neighbor's doing that well, or my friends got that high paying job. This is a great book to read at that point in your life. What it does is it helps you stay grounded, and it helps you compete with yourself. Why should you read it? Because it's a compelling story. Unlike The Fakir, which is also a great story, this actually is a great story, but it's also very well edited. It's very coherent, and it borrows on learnings from both Sai as well as Tiruvalluvar. Why not? Goes into preach mode at times. So what Rusbe does in this is that he starts picking actual excerpts and goes into a preach overdrive. So sometimes, you feel that it's a bit too heavy, cannot necessarily relate. He tries to dumb it down, but again, like, there were times when I just felt it was a bit too much. And then finally, the TLDR. So I think you should read it to feel gratitude towards the universe. The other thing that I really liked about this book is that it's very visual in its nature. So when you're actually reading it, you can almost visualize it as a movie playing out, unlike the other books, which seem to need your attention a lot more. So you can't like start imagining characters, but with this book you can do that. Two, the perfect one. So when I think you should read this at any point in time. This was one of those books which was purely amazing. Why was it amazing? I think it was amazing because it tells the story of more than a dozen spiritual masters. So for this one, actually, it covers not only Sai Baba, it covers Meher Baba, it covers spiritual masters like Guru Nanak Dev Ji, it covers Jesus Christ, it covers the Muslim saints, the Sufi saints, and it kind of gives the coherent story of how they came to become who they are. It also gives us personal experience that Rusbe has had with these different spiritual masters or saints, and then it's great because it gives you all those different perspectives, which unlike all the other books that I've spoken about, most of his books are very geared towards Sai Baba. Why not? I think it's purely spiritual and it's geared towards the lives of the spiritual masters. So if you are not someone who's very who's not drawn the boundary between religion and spirituality, then this book is probably going to be quite extreme, because what Rusbe also tries to do is he tries to kind of say that, hey, basically everyone's saying the same things. It doesn't really change much, and he also kind of tries to draw that thread to kind of help convey that message that, while religion is great, there's a certain level above that which is focused on spirituality, which everyone should focus on. Too long didn't read. So get a wholesome perspective on the spiritual masters, what drove them, what made them great, and kind of try to learn from them and imbibe those lessons. Coming to the last one, which is my favorite book that Rusbe has written. It's also the first book that I read of his, and ironically, when I was looking for books on Sai Baba at a particular point in my life, this was the only book that showed up on Goodreads, which was focused on him, apart from the Sai Satcharitra. So this book is hands down one of the best fiction and non-fiction books packed into one. When should you read this? Anytime. I think everyone should read this book. It's phenomenal. It's inspired by fictional characters who are interacting with Sai Baba, and then but Sai Baba is not speaking from Rusbe's perspective, he's speaking from the Sai Satcharitra. So it never feels like Rusbe is trying to force or fictionalize Sai Baba, but then he's fictionalized the characters who are interacting with him, which makes it a great read. Why should you read it? Because it borrows from the Sai Satcharitra, as I've just told you. It's got a compelling narrative, speed read, much better than the other books. So if there's one book that you are going to take away from all of this, I think it's got to be this book that you have to pick up and read. Why not? I actually have no reason why you shouldn't read it. I think everyone should read this book because it's that great. And then the last one is that, Too Long Didn't Read. I think read this if it's the only one that you read out of this list of books. If you found this video useful, or you would like me to make more of these, or you didn't like it, please do put it in the comments, and please do like, subscribe and share. Until next time, see you around.